You know, it's strange how distance doesn't always come from fights. Sometimes everything looks completely normal. No arguments, no big misunderstandings. And still, something feels missing. Like people are there, but not really there. Let me tell you something. Think about your own life for a second. There was a time when conversations felt easy, right? You didn't have to think before speaking. You didn't have to plan what to say. You just talked. And then slowly, without even noticing, that changed. This is a story about that change. About someone who didn't lose people, but slowly lost conversations. His name was Raghav. Now, if you saw his life from the outside, you would probably say he's doing well. A stable job, a decent routine, a family that lived together, nothing dramatic, nothing broken. And honestly, that's what made it harder to notice. Because when something breaks suddenly, you see it. But when something fades slowly, you don't. There was a time when Raghav used to come home and talk. Not about big things, just small, everyday moments. Today was tiring, my boss was in a strange mood today, I had good tea today. Random things, simple things. And his parents would listen. Sometimes they replied, sometimes they didn't. But it didn't matter because the connection was there. Even silence felt comfortable back then. But then life started getting heavier. Work changed, more responsibility, more expectations, more pressure, and slowly Raghav's mind became full. You know that feeling, right? When your day is so packed that even thinking feels like work. That's how his days started becoming. So when he came home, he didn't feel like talking. Not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't have the energy. At first, it was small. I'll talk later, not today, and it made sense. But later slowly became not today, and not today slowly became maybe tomorrow, and then nothing. Now, when he came home, he would go straight to his room. Sometimes he said, I have work, sometimes he said, I'm tired, and sometimes he didn't say anything at all. And you know what's interesting? He didn't feel like he was doing anything wrong. In his mind, everything had a reason. I'm just busy, I need rest, I'll talk when I feel better. But while he was thinking that, something else was happening. His parents were noticing. Of course they were. At dinner, they still sat together. Same table, same food, same routine. But the conversation changed. How was your day? Fine. Everything okay? Yes. Short answers, closed responses, no space to continue. And slowly, even those small questions started disappearing. Because when answers become smaller, questions also become fewer. Now his parents were also confused. They didn't know what had changed. They didn't know what to say. They thought, maybe he's stressed. Maybe we shouldn't disturb him. Maybe this is just how things are now. And so they stayed quiet. And that's how distance grows. Not because people stop caring, but because no one knows how to begin. Days passed like this, then weeks, then months. Everything looked normal. But something important was missing: connection. One evening, Raghav came home later than usual. He looked tired, but this time it was different. Not just work tired, something else. His mother noticed. She always did. She looked at him carefully, and for a moment she wanted to ask, Are you okay? But then she stopped because she didn't want to disturb him. And Raghav noticed that. He saw her hesitation, he understood her silence, but he also stayed quiet. And that moment, that small moment of silence between two people, said everything. That night, Raghav sat in his room, phone in his hand, scrolling, not really seeing anything, and suddenly a thought came. When was the last time I actually talked to them? Not replied, not answered, but really talked. He tried to remember. He couldn't. And that realization felt heavy. Because they were right there, just one room away, and still he felt distant. Not because he didn't love them, but because he had stopped expressing it. And maybe that's something we all assume. We think they know I care, they understand. But silence slowly changes that. The next day, nothing changed immediately. Same routine, same life. But that thought stayed. That evening, he came home a little earlier. His parents were sitting in the living room, watching TV. Everything looked normal. He stood there for a moment and then something small happened. Instead of going to his room, he sat down. It felt unusual, a little uncomfortable. For a few seconds, no one said anything. And then he said, "Today was a really long day. That's it." No big explanation, no deep conversation, just one sentence. But something shifted. His father looked at him, his mother turned off the TV, and slowly a conversation started. Not perfect, not emotional, not long, but real. And sometimes that's enough. Because distance doesn't always need a big solution. Sometimes it just needs someone to begin. Now you tell me, have you ever felt distant from someone even when they were close? Have you ever wanted to talk but didn't know how to start? And who is that one person you should probably talk to today? If this felt real to you, tell me in the comments. And if you want more such stories, just write more stories. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Dear Listeners. I'll meet you again with another story. Till then, maybe just start with one sentence.